Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Elena, who is going to be a Gold Rush character coming to RTS. Now I have been told this Gold Rush should start very early next week, so stay tuned for more information on the start of that event. Generally speaking, you can pick up one copy of the character after doing 30 pulls on the mission, and then the rest would be in the wheel. But they have actually added stuff in the past on stuff like roadmaps, so we'll have to see what they're going to do there. But when it comes to Elena, we have seen a version of this character before, if you remember back to, I think it was the 6-star era, where she had like the longest ever buff on her. I think it was focus for 8 turns or something like that. She looks quite similar. She's got the bow, she's got a lot, and I mean a lot of arrows on the right hand side, as you can see. On the left hand side, you can see the art in a bit better detail. Nice looking bow. It's, you know, kind of like recurve long bow. It's kind of cool. As you see the stats at level 1600, limit break 3, she has got 44,868 attack, 18,695 defense, and 29,912 HP. She is of course going to be a tough character, going to be of the support role, Gold Mythic, and she is going to be joining the Typhoon Allegiance. She is only going to be one of the very few characters on the Typhoon Allegiance that can be used on attack by the looks of things though. Now if we check out Elena's Adrenaline Rush, it is called Texan Archer. It's a 66 AP cost rush. This fighter gets Guardian Shield, attack an enemy for 500% damage, but plus 1 attack for each daze or impair on the target, and then all adjacent teammates get camouflage for 3 turns. So the first part means that she is going to put up the Guardian Shield before she attacks the enemy. If they have any sort of counter damage, she'll be able to block one form of this. So for instance, if they have a mod that can do reflect, she can block the reflect damage from that. Then she will do the attack for 500% damage to a single enemy. However, that could potentially be 3 attacks to a single enemy if that enemy has daze and impair. Now she does have some sorts of daze in her kit, as you can see with her specialist skill. She can daze enemies, so I will test out to see, does this count like as an application when she does this skill, or will it be the daze has to be there first? Now because this is on the Adrenaline Rush, it's not that big a deal because she can set it up herself. And then the last part, all adjacent teammates getting camouflage for 3 turns, would generally be her plus the 2 teammates next to her, which would be the leader and 1 other character. As she is not a leader, she would not be in that central position. Okay, so we are going to use the Adrenaline Rush of Elena, and you can see we have got a character in the top right hand corner who has no debuffs on them. I want to first test out with someone who has no debuffs. If we hit the crit, I want to see if we get another attack on the actual Adrenaline Rush itself, the actual crit proc that we get here. So let's do the actual hit. You can see the daze came in. Do we get a second attack? No. So we have to attack a character that already has daze on them. The actual crit that she gets and the application of daze from her specialist skill on the attack will not count. However, this time around we can see that Nor has got dazed and she is impaired. We have got characters on this team that can do daze and impair, but there might actually be something else in Elena's kit that also does daze and impair. I think the team up potentially with Clementine would be good because she does some dazes and impairs and stuff like that on her leader skill. So this time around we'll do the Adrenaline Rush, and she should hit 3 times because it's plus 1 attack for each impair and each daze, which would just be plus 2 potentially. And if she takes out the character, which she should, the 3rd attack would just go to another enemy. So we'll have the Adrenaline Rush come in, and it'll be 1, 2, 3. And that's pretty much as simple as it is. Now if we look at the upgrades on the Adrenaline Rush, you can see at grade 3 it gets plus 1 attack if the target has daze. And then at grade 5 it gets an upgrade where this fighter gets a Guardian Shield. You would have seen that Guardian Shield coming in on those attacks I did previously, but there was no sort of counter damage, so it wouldn't have actually been like that usable. So what would happen in that situation is she would have the Guardian Shield up for her defensive turn, and it would stop her from being dogpiled as easily. Then at limit break 2, it gets plus 1 attack if the target has impair. And that last attack, you could see the target had both daze and impair, so you can hit up to 3 times on this Adrenaline Rush with some pretty decent damage, 500% damage per hit. We did see the camouflage coming in as well. It did land on Elena, and it also did land on Clem as the leader. You would need other characters to potentially do this too. I don't think this part of it is that amazing. It would have been better if it was like all other teammates get camouflage, not just adjacent. It's going to be at least reasonably decent. If she does hit a payback or something, at least her teammates should survive next to her if they do have the counter damage land on them. So the Adrenaline Rush looks okay. It is a nice multi-hit potential. Team ups with potentially the new Clem as the leader, just because she does do days and obviously in pairs and stuff. Don't forget Elena's specialist skill, she can set her up herself for this as well, because you will be doing her signature move or basic attacks first, and as long as her signature move can crit, then there is a chance that it can dace. It's pretty much as simple as that. And who knows, it could even apply some effects like impair as well. But the Adrenaline Rush, like I say, not too bad. So now moving across to the signature move, we can see it is called Weakness Exploit. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. If the target has impair, they get normalized for 2 turns, attack the enemy for 500% damage, 600% damage if they have impair. So it does look very worthwhile to attack a character that has impair. You will first normalize them, which is cool, and then you will do extra damage up to potentially 1100% damage on a signature move. Is really, really high. Lots of characters will take monumental amounts of damage in that case, and obviously if they are normalized, there are a lot of characters that have some sort of revive sort of situation on their specialist skills. That isn't going to be the case on a lot of those characters now. Now there are a handful of characters that do have normalized resistance, and there is obviously the new leader in Magna that gives a lot of people normalized resistance. So you just got to be aware on what characters and teams you do want to face with Elena, and obviously the matchups you want to use with Elena as well, because to apply that impair, you have to have applied to impair on the turn 1. And there are some characters that do that. We have Laura, who can do that to support characters. We have the new Clem lead, who does that on her leader skill, and potentially Elena will have a passive in her mythic abilities that we can check out later. But this signature looks very nice. Let's test it out. Okay, so we'll start the fight, and as you can see on the defense team, we have some annoying specialists in the strong characters that we've got here. We've got Cameron Scar, Morgan Unhinged, and we also have James. These are specialists that stop themselves from being taken out so easily or come back after getting taken out. For instance, in the case of Morgan Unhinged, he is a more problematic character, can just get a nasty cycle going once he doesn't get taken out too early. He is one of the characters that's got impaired, so I can focus him with the signature move, and you can see he has been normalized first, and obviously now he is down for the count. He's not had his specialist skill proc, he isn't going to get revived next turn, and this happens with every time I do this signature move against an impaired target. So obviously if we have characters in my attack team that can periodically impair enemies, so for instance you've got, I think it was Winter Wendy, and I think also one of the Davies does a lot of impair, the team ups between those two characters could also be pretty nice. That means when it comes around on like in 2 turns, I can do the normalize against another character, for instance James, who would go into Outlast and just take him out, not let him do his Adrenaline Rush, and that is pretty handy. Now looking at the upgrades on this signature move, you can see at grade 2 it gets an upgrade where if that target has impair, they get normalized for 2 turns, so nice and early on that upgrade. At grade 4 it gets -1 to starting cooldown, so again very nice and early on that upgrade, so it goes from a 2-turn starting cooldown to a 1st turn starting cooldown. At limit break 1 it gets an upgrade where it gets 300% damage if the target has impair, and then obviously at limit break 3 that 300% gets boosted up to a further 300%, making it 600% total, where if the target has impair you'll do extra damage. Definitely seems to team up with impair characters is vital if you want to get the best out of Elena, and there are quite a few characters out there that can do impair. Like I said, Winter Wendy was quite an accessible one, so and I think quite a few people do like her and like to use her, so I think the team up between those two characters should be good. The new Clem was in the Stellar Roadmap wheel, so you can potentially have got some copies of her too, so some accessible characters without a doubt. Normalize is always nice, being able to nullify what is quite powerful defensive specialist skills is always a good thing in my opinion. Now moving over to Elena's mythic abilities, these are her passive skills. She is of course a support character, so she is going to have cunning. When attacking or being attacked, 30% less likely to trigger any weapon effects and walker effects. This will happen with her basic attacks on the signature move and adrenaline rushes as they have on-hit effects. So if people have stun on defense weapons, she's less likely to actually be stunned, which is actually pretty nice. And then the next one's called Go for Blood. At the start of each wave, this fighter gets camouflage and 100% tack down resistance for 3 turns. This fighter's attack deal 60% more damage against enemies with bleed. So you can actually improve the amount of damage output that she's going to do on her basic attacks, signature move and adrenaline rush with just a small amount of bleed, whether it be from, you know, someone who's going to lay up the character with damage with a mod, or you have someone who's going to lay down some bleed to a lot of characters. There are characters out there obviously that do decent amounts of bleed. We will no doubt have some characters hopefully that come out in the future that will team up well with Elena when it comes to that bleed side of things. The next passive is called Fear the Arrow. When attacking, 60% chance to impair the target for 2 turns. This is just nice, just so you can set up her adrenaline rush for the impair bonuses. But off the signature move, she will need someone else, because just like the specialist skill, this will most likely not proc before the hit. So obviously you will not get the bonuses. And obviously with it only being 60% chance, it isn't as amazing. I would say this is just a little bit of a bonus here. The next passive is called Fletched Skill. When attacking, 60% chance this fighter heals for 60% of their max HP and stuns the target for 1 turn. You might have seen that actually occurring during the fight, and this is actually pretty interesting. What I will do is I'll try and test this last passive out to see if it will actually stun someone in Outlast before, or should I say after, they cleanse. So for instance, they'll cleanse all their effects, then they get stunned afterwards. Kind of like you have some fighters like Crag do that against characters. Now it isn't as guaranteed because it only is a 60% chance to occur, but this could be just a little added bonus that Elena could potentially bring to the table. She'll have a 60% chance to impair them and a 60% chance to actually stun them. So both of those things should stop them from being able to do their adrenaline rush in Outlast anyway. Okay, so here we are attacking, and as you can see, we have Elena who's going to try and take out Eris on the defense team. And I'm also going to set up the damage with Elena with a little bit of bleed from Glenn, as you can see. Even if it is as little as 343, this should give Elena a 60% boost in the amount of damage she is going to do. So I do this signature move, and she is going to take out the enemy. And as you can see, the stun did come in, but it actually comes in, then gets cleansed. This is obviously a little bit disappointing, and there's not much you can do about this, unfortunately. You would obviously have to stun or impair the enemy as it stands, so you would need other characters to do things like impair line or taunt line. There are characters that can do that, but if she did get impaired by one of the other characters already, she would obviously not have her adrenaline rush up regardless, and she could potentially get normalized as well. And just to show you that I can actually do the attack again, this time around we have the impair on Eris. I'll set it up with the bleed again, and I'll nuke again with Elena. This time we hit the normalize and the character's out. Now if we didn't hit the normalize, because obviously Eris has normalized resistance, she was already impaired and she would not be able to gain her AP to be able to do her adrenaline rush. So this seems pretty good against Outlast characters either way. I would probably actually not waste her normalized potential against an Outlast in that situation. Other characters like the Halo 2 that I did in the previous clip seems to be much more effective. Characters that have no other way of stopping their kit other than normalize. Now jumping straight into the upgrades on the passives, you can see at grade 1 she gets the first half of Go for Blood, where at the start of each wave this fighter gets camouflage and 50% attack down resistance for 3 turns. This fighter's attacks deals 60% more damage against enemies with bleed, as I showed before. At grade 2 she gets the first half of Cunning. When attacking or being attacked, 15% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. And at grade 3 she gets the second half of Go for Blood, where at the start of each wave this fighter now gets camouflage and 100% attack down resistance for 3 turns. this fighter's attacks still deal 60% more damage against enemies with bleed. Now, obviously, the only guaranteed part of this that is really usable is the fighter getting 60% more damage against enemies with bleed. The camouflage is nice, but she will obviously give camouflage to teammates on parts of her kit. That includes herself as well, so she can refresh her own camouflage. And the attack down resistance is obviously nice as well, so she potentially can't get attacked down. And characters that get focus, there are enemies on defense teams that punish you for that, namely characters like Rosie, where they give you attack down for getting that focus. She would potentially block that. Moving on to grade 4 and 5, we have Fear the Arrow at grade 4. When attacking, 20% chance to impair the target for 2 turns. And at grade 5, we have the first half of Fletched skill. When attacking, 20% chance this fighter heals for 20% of their max HP and stuns the target for 1 turn. Into the limit breaks to finish off this character's passives, we have Limit Break 1, Cunning 2 coming in, where it'll be 30% less likely to trigger any weapon effects and walker effects when being attacked or attacking. And at Limit Break 2, we get Fear the Arrow Part 2, where it'll be 60% total chance to impair the target for 2 turns when attacking. This will work on basic attacks, Signature Move, and Adrenaline Rush. And then lastly, at Limit Break 3, Fletch Skill 2 comes in. When attacking, 40% chance this fighter heals for 40% of their max HP and stuns the target for 1 turn, stacking with Fletch Skill Part 1, making it 60% chance this fighter heals for 60% of their max HP and stuns the target for 1 turn. The little heal is obviously quite nice. Generally speaking, attack team characters can't really survive too much. I think Elena has close to 30k HP, but only 20k defense. But this will just keep her topped up on the HP, which is obviously is decent. The stun is nice too. If she did manage to get off the triple hit on her Adrenaline Rush, each of those hits could stun enemies. So effectively, she could stun someone with the first hit and take them out, move on to another target, stun them and take them out, and then move on to another target, stun them and take them out. And in certain cases, this could be important. For instance, Outlast characters that don't obviously have cleanses. There are quite a few Outlast characters out there. Not all of them have cleanses when they go into Outlast. This would obviously be effective against those characters. But the last 2 passives only have 60% chance to proc, but they obviously both can have a chance to proc when she attacks. So she's got 60% chance to impair and 60% chance to stun. A lot of the time, one of those things is going to happen, but it's not always guaranteed. So the passives are okay. I don't think they're too amazing. The 60% extra damage against characters who have bleed is actually pretty nice. You do have to set that up. There aren't too many characters out there that are effective with bleed right now, but we might have some more come out in the future. We'll have to wait and see. It has to come out early on in the fight too, because you'd want this to happen with her signature move just to get the full effect if you can. Now, we have been seeing it proc throughout the fight, and it is going to be the specialist skill of Elena. It is Head Cracker. When this fighter performs a critical attack on a target, that target will be dazed for 2 turns, and this fighter recovers from all penalties. Now, I don't see the daze being that big a deal on Head Cracker, honestly, because this character is a heavy hitter, and a lot of the time the character that she focuses will get taken out, and it won't really set up her Adrenaline Rush that much, if I'm honest, unless you're against a really tanky character. But the cleanse is obviously really, really nice. She's going to fully cleanse herself, which is going to be very, very useful. Any sort of damage over time, any infection, anything like that is going to be removed, which is obviously great. But the daze is just going to be kind of hit and miss. It does set up her Adrenaline Rush, like I said, to do an extra hit, but a lot of the time that first turn signature move should be really, really effective. And honestly, the follow-up damage from the rest of your team on that character that should be normalized, you're probably hoping to take them out. So a lot of the time that daze isn't really going to be that big a deal. But if there's a last character alive on a defense team, at least you know when you hit auto, every single part of Elena's kit will daze the enemy, stop them from being able to do signature moves, which could be like revives to pick up their team. Now, Elena has got an attached weapon, and it is Elena's Deadly Bow and Arrow. It has got 40% attack, 45 crit, bleeding when attacking, a better chance to cause 4.5% of this fighter's attack stat in bleed damage for 4 turns to the enemy. And in the last slot, it has improved attack damage boost, attacks deal 35% damage, and they ignore defense bonuses. I don't think this weapon is that great. 2 of the slots are not that important for her, honestly. The last slot is nice, attack is nice, but to replace slot 2 and honestly slot 3, where she will need AP on attack because she's got a 66 AP cost rush, you're going to lose out on 2 upgrades on that attack percentage, and it's only going to be 45%. So you probably want to put a weapon in her hands that is pre-built, and hopefully you've got a nice weapon. Double attack weapons will work on her kit, and if she does hit that triple attack on her Adrenaline Rush, she could hit up to 6 times. So that's just worth noting. And also the signature move will obviously hit a double attack potentially as well. Now the way double attack weapons works, before anyone like thinks about it, is it will do a double attack against the enemy. Even if the first attack takes them out, the second attack will still hit the same enemy. So it's not like she would do the attack against one enemy and then move on to another enemy that has it impaired to normalize them too. That isn't how that would work. But she could also have, let's say, Rampage, but Rampage has kind of fallen off. I think the last slot is really nice on this weapon, so it is a real shame that it doesn't have, let's say, AP on attack in the second slot, 45% attack, and then you can choose whether you want to keep the bleed or not, which I think most people would not. But it is what it is. I think there's some solid replacement weapons out there for Elena, no doubt. So that's my little preview of Elena. She is going to be coming to the game as a Gold Rush character, so hopefully you've got those tokens. There'll be no doubt loads of offers for you to pick up some tokens if you so wish. Generally speaking, Gold Rush offers for Gold Mythic tokens are not too bad. I have just noticed that the string of her bow is not attached to the arrow, and the animation is kind of messed up, and it's tilting me. But otherwise, Elena doesn't look too bad, but she does need some very specific team-ups with characters that will do impair, but her damage output should be pretty good if you have a little bit of bleed sprinkled in there as well. Now, is she fast enough? Is she good enough against some of these meta defense teams? Probably not, but we'll see how she's going to fare. She can hit quite hard on that Adrenaline Rush from testing, and obviously Normalize is just nice on the signature move. Do give me your thoughts though on Elena, her kit. Are you going to be pulling for her in the Gold Rush? Any thoughts in the comments down below. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.